Our guest today is Shashank ND, the founder and CEO of Practo. Shashank, take us back to your college days. So you're in college. How did the idea of Practo come to you?
My dad, unfortunately, was in hospital quite a few times. So I was in and out of the hospital a lot of times, and I could see what the inefficiencies in the hospitals were. A lot of lack in technology. I went to this hospital, a big hospital in central Bangalore, and then I went to the doctor and asked him my dad's prescription. He gave me a printout. I looked at the printout and said that, okay, printout is inconvenient. Can you just email it to me? He says my software only has a print button. It doesn't have an email button. So we, over 2 years, built a quick software, gave it to doctors. Before we graduated, we had a bunch of paying customers. And that's how the journey began.
If somebody would have evaluated in 2007 or 8, on paper, the model looked very, very difficult to execute. What was that one or two things which others were not able to see and you were able to see?
People were building software from the point of view of what the doctor wants. They were building the software from the view of what patient wants. Some of the things that I did well was listen to feedback. I would always go to them with a proposition. A lot of time reading between the lines as to actually what they want. And we went with this feature and said that, hey, you know what, this sends an SMS right now. And they would be like, okay, the moment I turned the laptop to their end and they would click send and they would get an SMS on their phone, in that 30 seconds, the instant gratification was so high that they were like, oh man, this works. I'm like, yeah, it works. Why don't try it for 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, we would make them so addicted to the product. By the end of the trial, they would be like, please take my check. Please let me make sure that I extend it on the 15th day.
I would say 1 to 10. How did the company evolve from those first 10 set of founding team members, completely bootstrapped, to becoming what the product is in current shape and form?
In that 0 to 1 phase, I only 2 metrics: number of sales done, number of lines of code written. And so what we did was, even though we were completely bootstrapped, we were able to make ton load of progress on these 2 metrics. And even with zero capital, I think we got to about hundreds of customers. Shashank Singh, out of the blue, wrote me an email saying that, hey, I heard that you run a SaaS software for doctors in India, which is online, and you have hundreds of paying customers. Is this true? Question mark. We'll give you more capital. Can you scale this? I said, we should be able to. And that signal allowed others to come to us. That would attract the talent, that would attract investors, that would attract people, that would attract everybody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Prognosis. Our guest today is Shashank ND, the founder and CEO of Practo. Practo is India's largest integrated healthcare platform with services ranging from doctor appointment booking to online consultation, e-pharmacies, and e-diagnostics. The platform till date has served about 40 crore patients and more than 5 lakh clinicians are using the platform. Welcome to the show, Shashank. First of all, congratulations for building probably one of India's first and such a fantastic company. I think the company started in 2008, so you have a operating history of more than 15, 16 years. So we hope to learn a lot of interesting anecdotes and story of your journey in the process. But let's start with you, Shashank. Why don't you tell us something about yourself? More importantly, something that has not been covered in media.
First of all, thanks for having me over. All I can tell you is that in the you mentioned about how long we've been operating. Somebody just reminded me recently that in about 2 more years I would be doing this for half my life. So that's a fact that I'm trying to get more used to. But I'm very happy, and it's clearly been a dream run, and we are hoping that in our worldview, the 17 years that has been is just a very small part. I think relative to other startups, it's a long part. But when you compare it to what we've seen in healthcare in general, Apollo Group, which is a company that we look up to, has 40 years of history. And there are many others that are 30, 40, 50 years in history. So just getting started. Coming to what media doesn't know, I usually don't delve in my personal side, but all I can tell you is that I love to play squash. I have very few hobbies other than that. I literally, from the time in college, been thinking about solving problems, thinking about, it happens to be in healthcare, so thinking about healthcare, thinking about startups, thinking about innovation, thinking about technology. So literally, as you can see, half my life has gone into Practo, and so that's where we are.
Amazing. Shashank, take us back to your college days. So you're in college. How did the idea of Practo come to you? What was the genesis?
So in college, I went to NITK Suratkal. NITK Suratkal, in the first year you do what you do when you're in hostel for the first time, which is completely break free and enjoy the freedom that you get. But by second year you start thinking what you really need to do here. So I joined a bunch of clubs, and one of the clubs I joined was an entrepreneurship club, and this was the first time an entrepreneurship club was being set up in Suratkal, and I happened to be one of the first few to join that, the founding team of what we used to call back then Euphoria. And that's when, through that club, is when I came across a couple of individuals who really took my breath away. I still remember in ISB, there was this event, which was, I think, that entrepreneurship event or something, the business summit. And we had taken an overnight journey to get there. And I was sitting in the audience, and there were a lot of speakers from very large companies who came and spoke, and the whole audience was sleeping. And suddenly, this one person in this black T-shirt and jeans from a startup called Rediff.com came to the stage, Ajit Balakrishnan, and he just spoke in such simple language and with such clear articulation and very first principle thinking that the whole crowd was paying attention to him. So I thought, this person speaks a lot of sense. So then I started understanding what where he came from and how this type of companies are being built, and that's how my interest in entrepreneurship started. And I was looking for ideas. I was looking for what to do. Luckily, my coursework wasn't too heavy, so I had a lot of free time. And that's when my dad, unfortunately, was in hospital quite a few times. So this is probably something that I've never shared before. But my dad has actually had 12 surgeries. Something that we're not very happy about, but it's a fact. He's had 12 surgeries in hospitals, and back when I was in my college, that was probably his 8th surgery that he was having. And so I was in and out of the hospital a lot of times, and I could see what the inefficiencies in the hospitals were. I generally thought everybody goes through this. When you're 20, 21, you don't have too much data points. So I thought everybody goes through this. And so when I came across the hospital and the experience in hospital, I saw a lot of things, a lot of lacking in technology. One specific example, I went to this hospital, a big hospital in central Bangalore, top hospital. They had IMAX back in 2007 or 6. And when I went to the doctor and asked him for my dad's prescription, he gave me a printout. And I looked at the printout and said that, okay, printout is inconvenient. Can you just email it to me? It's a big Mac, and my Gmail has unlimited storage now in 2007. Send it to me an email. He says my software only has a print button. It doesn't have an email button. And so that simple thing, I said, the line to write to get an email is just one line of code. Right? One line of PHP code, just of whichever language, like 2 lines of code is enough to get a printout. So why is there to get an email? So why is there no email? So we, over the 2 years, built a quick software, gave it to doctors, and before we graduated, we had a bunch of paying customers, and that's how the journey began. It began with this one talk by Ajit Balakrishnan, which lit up, the first principle thinking, right, where you're talking and it makes sense and you're paying attention, and then it led to my dad and his unfortunate visits to the hospital, which led to this interaction with the doctor, which led me to finding out these gaps in the healthcare ecosystem. And it just started as something I just do for a year. It's been 17, and healthcare still mesmerizes me. It keeps me challenged, and and we're still here.
Amazing. This really interesting, Shashank, because I was in college around the same time. I also attended an NIT, and this was the time when Lehman Brothers happened. So if you don't come from a lot of money, or if you don't come from a business background, then at that point of time, somebody doing engineering would consider themselves really lucky to just land into a job. I mean, the other aspect, the other context that was very different back then was becoming an entrepreneur was not fashionable back then. I mean, entrepreneurs in 2008 and 9 were still not celebrated in, let's say, media. There were no big checks ready to support you when you start the journey. What gave you the conviction and the confidence to take that path versus choosing, or I would say, not easier, but let's say more predictable path of taking a job from NIT?
You hit it. You got the dates absolutely right. I graduated in 2009, and the Lehman Brothers had happened, so we in campus exploded that there's no placements.
By the way, was it because of Lehman Brothers की job तो लगनी नहीं है तो startup कर लेते हैं?
So yeah, honestly, when Lehman Brothers happened, everything, people were not expecting much, but being from an IIT, that even back then that there were plenty of companies coming in. There was something called the Dream Package, and India was honestly not that affected. At least the campus is one of that affected that year. So all my batchmates and everybody got fantastic offers and got placed. And I didn't sit for placements. So I was the first one probably who said no, I'm not going to sit for placements. I don't know where I got the courage from. Okay, I'll be making up something if I told you that I knew something will happen in the future, but absolutely nothing. I just didn't sit for placements. I just felt that I felt confident enough that I will job to lag jayegi. Whether in campus or outside, I think I'll figure out a job. I didn't want to have a plan B. I didn't want to have this option of not doing this. So I wanted to be all in. And yeah, it was, it sounds very courageous right now. Probably, I just went with what my gut said. And I happened to become the first person on my campus to not sit for placements. And I did that for 6 months. And I would hear all my other colleagues or my batchmates being placed. And, there was this final block where they would have all the parties, and they would, every time a person gets placed, you throw a party. And I would be in Bangalore sitting and coding and going and selling. And I would hear all these amazing parties going on campus, and I would be missing out on the fun. And yeah, luckily, thankfully, my parents and my entire family were very supportive. But then for 6 months, I didn't sit for any placement. Then finally, I said, you know what, might not hurt to. So the placement started in May or June, something like that. I think by September, I didn't sit for anything. All my classmates got placed. I was the only one who had not had a job because I didn't sit for any interviews. And I finally then said, okay, you know what, I'll just go. Whichever job is there first, I'll take it and come back. Anyway, I won't take it. So I took a bus overnight from Bangalore to Suratkal. Whichever company came first, I just sat for it. I won't tell the name. Luckily, it happened to be a dream job, dream package. So once you sit for that and you get that, you can't do anything else. So I sat with the first one. I got to the first one. By night, they told me that you have a job in this dream package above some 6 lakh or 8 lakh back then per annum. And I came back home. So that was the easy part. And then I forgot about it. And then when the time to join came in, that was when actually I had to make the choice, right? And then I went to my family and said that, hey, you know what, I'm not going to take this job up. And they were like, oh my God, we were okay till the point when you just wanted it as a backup. But now then you had to actually make a call, not taking a job. Are you really crazy? So I had I had intervention sessions with my friends. They would call me over and make me sit down and then educate me, do this later, do an MBA first, do this, do that. Don't take this risk right now. You can always do it later on. And everybody in my family sat me down and said, what is wrong with you, right? People are getting the pink slips. You are giving away a fantastic job. What's wrong with you? And something told me that, and now comes the conviction part. And that is when I remember this very clear moment. I was actually building software for doctors, and I was giving software to doctors. I would go to their clinics, give them the software, they would use it, and they would be so happy. And they would tell me about how amazing the software was, how it solved so many problems of theirs. I felt a little important, right? I felt, okay, kuch to kar raha hu, kuch to impact ho raha hai, right? So I felt good about that feedback that they would give me. Of course, there used to be customer support issues, but I would get some good feedback. And I think that gave me the confidence that, maybe I can try this out. And I had no dependencies. I knew that in college, there would be some pocket money, and that would stop coming through. But I was confident that, I can still make it through. And that feedback that the doctors gave me really, I found that I'm adding value. I said, let me do this till I can do it. Then anyways, you can always go back to that. And I always had a low lifestyle, so I had really no need for too much money. Yeah. I said, let me continue this for some more time. But you got it right that the Lehman Brothers happened then, and it all played out well. And to be just honest, I was in love with the problem, and I think I still am. And that is maybe a good thing and a bad thing. So that's where I am.
Very interesting. So you started selling to doctors. Your first set of customers came while you were still in college.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, coded the first set of product in college in the final year. Luckily, I was in a department that didn't need very strict attendance, so I could manage to stay in Bangalore for
Okay.
a longer time. And yeah, we sold products throughout my final year. I would sell from Saturday, Sunday, and then go back to college for a few days and back and selling in Bangalore, completely bootstrapped. The funny part was I would actually to generate money, I would participate in B plan competitions. So
Oh,
all the
okay.
B schools would have B plan competitions. So I
Yeah,
used
there
to
was a
be
prize money.
there's a
Yeah.
prize money, right?
Yeah.
And the prize money would be attractive. So I would apply as a business plan with a business with an actual business, right? And I would go and present as a business plan, and the judges would say, "ये तो चलेगा नहीं." And I'm like, "Boss, पैसा बना रहा हूँ
चल
मैं
रहा
अभी."
है.
Like, you can check this out. I'm actually making money. So we've won a few competitions, and that's how I actually funded a lot of the initial months with the B plan prize money. It was funny because I would go to business schools, right? And they would come to the to receive me, and I would be an undergrad studying in undergrad, meeting management students and telling them about how to run a company. It was a little awkward, but yeah, got through that and made some wins by closing some B plan competitions and made it work that way.
And you were the one coding and selling back in those days.
So I was coding and selling. I'm a computer science, or rather an IT graduate. So computer science was my course, and so yeah, I loved coding, and I had to sell in order to code. And I was very lucky to meet my co-founder Abhinav, who's also, by the way, we were the two people selected for the e-cell I mentioned about, and I mentioned before about Euphoria.
Sure.
And so we were building together, we were coding the software together, and he turned out to be a much better coder than me, and so he continued. Today, he still continues to play the role of CTO, and I continue to play the role of CEO.
So
But
selling
back
came
then,
more naturally to you.
selling came more naturally to me.
Okay.
And he's of course a very gifted technology officer. So yeah, we were a perfect match to each other.
Let's double click on the chalega nahi bit, because now, to people who see the Practo story sitting here in 2025, it all looks obvious that healthcare was exploding, it was getting organized, mobile phone penetration, technology penetration was going to go up. On hindsight, all looks obvious, but selling software in 2008 and B, selling software to doctors. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult sell, especially if your initial USP was not about कि हम आपका धंधा बढ़ा देंगे या patient ले आएंगे. It was about that it's a practice management software, right? I think chalega nahi somehow. I mean, if somebody would have evaluated in 2007 or 8, on paper the model looked very, very difficult to execute. What was that one or two things which others were not able to see and you were able to see?
Yeah, it's a good question. So people were building software from the point of view of what the doctor wants. We were not building the software from the view of what the doctor wants. We were building the software from the view of what patient wants. So we were consumers first, and so what we were trying to tell the doctor was, we try to understand. So some of the things that I did, I think, well, was listen to feedback, right? And I would go sell, and they would tell me why your product sucks. And it was never that the first version of the product is what they said, oh, this is amazing, I want to buy this. But I would always go to them with a proposition, and they would always tell me why it's such a bad proposition, right? And so the first few months was all about me going to them and then coming back with a ton of feedback why it is a bad idea. So the whole thing was to learn from that and figure out, okay, what are the things that really will click. And so I would spend a lot in the clinics, a lot of time talking to them, a lot of time reading between the lines as to actually what they want. And it turns out that they anything that they spend money on, they should make money on it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't build a consumer product back then. I built a software. What we picked up on was the no-shows. So a lot of the doctors did not have receptionists, and even the ones that had receptionists don't want to call the patient. Healthcare is a trust-oriented ecosystem. So the receptionist didn't want to call the patients and tell them that, hey, are you coming today? Are you coming tomorrow?
They would appear salesy.
Yeah, they would appear salesy, right? And they would feel that, why am I pushing? If the more I push the patient, the more the patient will pull away, right?
Okay.
And that is the consumer behavior in healthcare, that you want it to be a pull product. You can't be a push product. And so that was a problem. But at the same time, the doctor's time was very valuable. His schedule was packed. If 2-3 patients don't come, his time is wasted, and that's money lost. And many of these busy doctors would also, and also if patient doesn't come, revenue is lost. So A is time, it's a double whammy for the doctor. That is revenue loss. So what we built was an automated messaging system for the doctor, scheduling system for the doctor, which would send SMSs and which would email the patient and remind the patient. And because of those reminders, we were able to reduce the no-show rate, right? So we went with idealistic views first. We said, we want you to store records and we want to do all of this. They said yes, but I can do it later also. It's nice to have. But when we went with this feature and said that, hey, this sends an SMS right now, and they would be like, okay. But the moment I turned the laptop to their end and they would click send, and they would get an SMS on their phone, in that 30 seconds, the instant gratification was so high that they were like, oh man, this works. I'm like, yeah, it works. Why don't try it for 2 weeks? Then we'll see. In 2 weeks, we would make them so addictive to the product. By the end of the 2 weeks trial, they would be like, please take my check. Please let me make sure that I send it on the 15th day. So that is how we got the first hit. The second thing that we saw was the feedback we were getting was that many people used to sell the software and then run away, right? Simple, because it's a licensed software. And then, like you said, it's already tough sales to be made. And the second problem is when you sell, you do support. But support was on AMC. So they would pay 90% upfront and 10% over every year, right? And incentives are not aligned. I'll sell and then support dekha jayega. But then I changed that. I said that, what? Why don't you pay us the same amount every year, right? So it's a SaaS model. 2009, we came up with the SaaS model to doctors, right? And gave to doctors on a SaaS model.
SaaS wasn't a word which was commonly understood, even among, let's say, the startup circle back then.
Exactly. And so actually it was one of Matrix's very old partners, I forget his name. He was the one who coined the SaaS metrics and etc. back in 2010, and we would follow his thing. Okay, what works? Because all of us were trying it for the first time. And so just coming back, so that was the second thing that we did, was moved from a license on-prem to a SaaS. So that made sure that we had recurring revenue, and that also made sure the support was good. So two problems that doctors face, which was that, hey, you're going to sell and run away, and that it should give me ROI. Both were solved. So it made recurring revenue for us. So by the time we graduated, we already had like tens of customers paying us money. So in a way, we were making more money from our customers than from the compensation that we would get from our jobs. So those were the two things that actually, but the main thing was, in that 6 months, we never gave up. We kept listening, kept modifying it to find that answer. And we keep doing that even today. Nothing has changed. 17 years, I was in the customers meeting yesterday, and I was listening and figuring out, okay, how do I understand this problem? What is that? I mean, you do that, right? I mean, all of us do that. Like, can I find that problem? And then can I find that problem that's perfectly interesting so that I understand the problem well enough, then I can craft the solution.
Wow.
Still goes on today.
Wow, amazing. The first rule of sales is to show, not tell. So I really like, and for young people watching this show, that whole idea of demonstrating how SMS goes in 30 seconds, that's more powerful than any deck that a sales guy would ever present. Great. Shashank, in the initial days, where did the adoption come from? Did it come from doctors who were digitizing their practices for the first time with you, or did it come from people who were already sold on the idea of digitizing their practice but were using legacy system and found your systems to be much better?
Actually, it came from both. But what we did, and we put I don't know how I got away with all these things, was that we said there is no cold calling. So we made a rule, because I know we said that the product has to be so good, and you should do such a good service of sales that you can only go to a customer, you can go to a lead if you are referred to that person. So you cannot. So what we did through that was that we made sure that if you sold to a customer, only that person can tell you who else to go to. So we did not allow our sales team to have, you can't just walk into a customer.
Like how MRs do, just walk into a
Because we felt that, if it's referred, the chances of success are much higher, and it'll also demonstrate value to the customers. So that was what we implemented. And so what tended to happen was we then started peaking to one specialization. So it was more than the technology savviness of the doctor. It was more about, hey, this doctor, if I can impress him very well, then he'll give me his circle of friends. And like, doctors are a very thick community, right? And they stay doctors for life. So that community is very, very strong. Just like how a bad reference can kill you, a good reference can make you. And so we sat with doctors and we would give such a good feedback to them. Say that, sir, the only way I can, as a sales guy, grow is if you can refer me people. If you don't refer people, I'm dead. That is how we were able to, and this stayed for about 2-3 years. So we did some, very innovative stuff back then at the 0 to 1 phase, which of course can't happen at a 1 to 10 phase. We also had no sales commission. We said we'll pay the sales guys, but you have to make sure that this is the first 10 sales guys, the founding team sales guys. And so these are the things that we did to make sure that it didn't seem salesy to the doctor. Man, you're reminding me of things I did 17 years back. I'm surprised I remember these things. But the interesting part there, which came through was that dentists started referring to other dentists. So we became very strong with dentistry because of that. And then, dentistry had a higher average revenue per patient compared to other specializations, especially in the OPD space. In the primary care space, they are the highest. And second is the number of the competition about dentists is today also is very large because of the number of colleges are being higher. So that group of doctors tended to adopt newer things faster because they had to stay ahead of others. It's not just our technology, but in general, they were always keen to move faster. So we would get high penetration in dentistry. Then we would go to dermatology, and then the dermatologist would refer to other dermatologists. So it started working in that referral kind of a space, and that's how we were able to grow.
Makes sense. Take us through the journey of how, I would say 1 to 10. How did the company evolve from those first 10 set of founding team members, no funding, completely bootstrapped, to becoming, let's say, what the product is in current shape and form?
Yeah. So that's a long journey, but I can just break it up into parts. The first part was, I keep hearing a lot of people talking about, hey, I couldn't scale because funding was not available. I couldn't scale because team was not available. I don't find them very credible. I know there are some ideas for which capital is
Required on
very
day one,
required on day one. But if you are bootstrapped, you still can make a lot of show a lot of progress. So what we would do is we would have just in that 0 to 1 phase have only 2 metrics: number of sales done, number of lines of code written. Okay, just 2 metrics. So in the company, you're either doing one of these two. If you're not doing one of these two, then you're not going to be in the company.
Yeah.
So so what we did was, even though we were completely bootstrapped, we were able to make load of progress on these 2 metrics. And even with zero capital, I think we got to about hundreds of customers. And I remember when Shailendra Singh,
the Sequoia MD,
Sequoia and Peak 15 now, out of the blue wrote me an email saying that, hey, I heard that you run a SaaS software for doctors in India, which is online, and you have hundreds of paying customers. Is this true? ? Right? And I replied, yeah, it's true. Right? That's the truth. And I said, this is insane. So when I went and met him, I just showed him all the logos. I said, all these are customers. This is the bank statement. We're profitable. This is the number of customers that we have. These are the revenue that they're paying. This is the recurring revenue. This is how the renewal rates are working. And he was like, this is amazing. We'll give you more capital. Can you scale this? I said, we should be able to. And then when we got that capital, we scaled. So it was not that capital prevented us from scaling.
Sure.
So and how did he hear about us? We didn't go talk to him. We didn't.
You're
go
not actively raising.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, we were just actively selling, or rather, actively surviving. Right? We were just actively surviving, and the best use of time is not to be in conferences, not to be in, not to be running behind investors. Is to be in the market selling. Your metrics will decide your future, right? Nobody else can. Okay. So that's what we were focused on, that number of sales and number of lines of code. And so those two were was the signal between the noise, right? And that signal allowed others to come to us. That would attract the talent, that would attract investors, that would attract people, that would attract everybody. Focus on the problem, keep solving the problem, keep seeing the metrics improve. Rest will take care of itself. It's like I remember the Steve Jobs quote that a good product doesn't need marketing, right? A good product will market itself, but not that you should not do marketing, but I'm just saying that a good product is bare minimum. So you need to build an excellent product, and that's what we would just focus on. And the we would define that as my number of lines of code and things. So that's what we continue to do even today. And that journey led to the first round, and then suddenly within I think 6 months we grew 10x, because we just were able to add more sales guys, and we were clearly capital constrained. So it blew up, and then we had more investors reaching out to us. We had, without us reaching out to them, they were reaching out saying that, hey, can you please take my money, my money, my money. And then, we still, we felt that, at that time, Sequoia was the perfect partner, and we went ahead with the second round with them. And then, we found, and then same thing happened. We got even more number of customers. And then we got Matrix, which is now Z47, who came forward and said, hey, why don't we do the next round along with Sequoia? And we took that round together, and then it keeps going forward, right? And at one point, I think the only change that happened was in 2012, we started, if you notice, our problem statement was, how do you solve consumers' problem? My dad's problem, which was my problem.
Sure.
So we saw that consumers, back then also, just to give you a small anecdote, when two doctors bought the same Ray or software, the patient, if he had the same mobile number, could log on online and he could access all his health records at one time. This is now called ABDM, okay, which is decentralized health records. So we built this in 2012, okay, and 2011, and what I was trying to explain, that our focus was always around the consumer, right? What does the consumer want? Unfortunately, when we even built this feature out, consumers didn't adopt it that well.
Yeah.
But what we saw was that consumers had problems, and internet was increasing, and with mobile coming in, we saw the rush that came through. And so we said, okay, now that we have solved so many problems of the consumer through the software, can we build other things that can solve other problems of consumers? And what's the next problem of consumers? Finding a doctor. Yeah. So can we build that? And then, okay, what's the next problem? Can I talk to him? Okay, let's build that. What's the next problem? Can I get medicines? Okay, let's build that. Can I get tests? Okay, let's build that. Okay, now that I have all this, can I make sure that my surgery can take place more effectively? Okay, let's build that. Okay, now that we have all of this, can my company pay for it? Okay, let's build that. Now, okay, you build all this in India. Okay, can you build this in the Gulf? Okay, let's build that. Now, can you build another country? Let's build that. And that's where we're here.
Yeah. So the first product, it's still called Practo Ray, right?
Yeah.
Now the playbook for building a SaaS-based product versus I would say, a consumer classified / search and discovery platform, which in the very early days Practo was. Of course, now it's a fully integrated healthcare platform, but in the very early days, I remember using the product. It was a very smart and easy way to find a doctor. There are ratings, there are listings, other people rating the doctor, doctors also replying to it. How were you able to manage two products with very different set of playbook? One is a pure SaaS playbook where only two things matter, right? But number of line of code written and salespeople on the ground. Yeah. Versus a consumer platform requires a very different DNA within the organization. How did you execute these two?
Yeah, I mean, see, part of it was survival. We knew that the SaaS scale in India, software was limited.
It will stagnate at some point.
It will stagnate in some point in time. So we did two things. We said, okay, we need to go global. So we started selling in Singapore and other countries the SaaS software. That happened. We said, okay, to de-risk, can we also look at the consumer side and go down that path? So it was coming back of our vision to solve consumer problems, but then also the need for growth and need to diversify our product portfolio. Second, so it was more, wasn't a choice for us. Second was, we are genuinely very passionate. Our vision has been the same from day one. It never changed. How to help mankind live healthier and longer lives. If you ask any Praction, he will repeat this line from last 17 years. How to help mankind live healthier and longer lives. And we would stay true to that. And every time we would meet, say, what can we do now with the technologies available now that can serve mankind better now? So it was SaaS in that decade. But the next decade was very clear that consumers were going to come through. And so we had to do well there. And so it wasn't a choice, but it is something that we have to do. And so we went down that path. It was difficult. I would still say it is very difficult to make a transition from B2B to B2C. Your thought process, your orientation, your capital allocation, your team, your DNA, everything changes. But luckily in that space, it was still emerging. There were no major players, so we could really get in. We had the time to make that shift. We started in 2011. And I would say by 2013, 2014, it took 2-3 years to even orient ourselves to think that way and to solve that. Luckily, the only common thing was both needed computer science. So that was the only common thing, but everything else about the business model were different. and it took us a good time. But the other good thing was we also were watching how Redbus did Boss and then built Redbus on top. We were watching how OpenTable had created an OpenTable software and then a consumer-facing OpenTable. So the SaaS plus marketplace combination, we were watching this from a distance, and we saw that this is not the first time it's being attempted. Maybe in healthcare it's the first time attempted, but in other places the first principles were still valid, and we saw the flywheel of both were actually very strong. So it became very obvious to us that a person who's only doing software will not succeed, and a person doing only marketplace will not succeed. It has to be the combination of two, because the combination of two is when you get enough data points for the provider that can make your marketplace more enriched. And that is the flywheel that we used. The flywheel of software working in the marketplace, which we called back then the hyperloop. And that hyperloop is what, just to give you an example, when we launched the consumer side, I remember that it took us 3 years to go to 100 million users, 3 or 4 years, 100 million users in 3 to 4 years. So we launched in 2012, and then by 2015, 2016, we had 100 million users in India coming onto our platform. Wow. So it was because of this hyperloop that it really gave us that scale. But yeah, challenging transition, a necessary one. And I think that's the part of a journey, right? You have to challenge yourself. Today, the biggest challenge that we face is 80% of Practo's revenues comes from India. Can that be different tomorrow, right? Can there be a higher percentage of global? So that means you have to now globalize your company thinking, thought process.
Sure.
No digital health company has gone global per se. So that's a challenge. Second is, we want to go from being a privately held company to a public company in the near future. So these are two massive DNA changes that we need to. So this will keep happening in a 3-year cycle that you have to. Otherwise, evolution takes care of you. So you have to keep evolving.
Shashank, let's double click on the various verticals that you are running. Let's begin with the first product, which is Practo Ray. So amazing product, because I'm assuming the marginal effort when you go to a different geography is just sales, right?
Yeah, I can just lay down the different verticals we have. We have software. So Ray is part of, we have quite a few other software companies like Insta. So Ray was built for clinics. Insta we acquired, which was for hospitals.
Okay.
And so these are the two brands that we have in the software vertical. So the software is very straightforward, helps doctors with their workflows, and it's completely doctor facing.
So Ray is smaller clinics and Insta is enterprises.
Yes, enterprises. So and yeah, right, that it takes minimal effort to repackage it for any other geography. Insta is one of the most popular products in the Middle East. Ray is one of the more popular products in India. But one of the things that is different is that for software is regulations are different. So and insurance workflows are different. So while the software is the same and consumers are the same, the payment methodologies are different. So there are, like India may now you have the Ayushman Bharat and those integrations. In Middle East there is Malafi, and there are different types of organizations that you have to integrate with. So that's one difference. So that's software for us. That's one vertical. That's roughly about I would say 10% of our revenues. Then we have care navigation, which is the biggest one. We call it care navigation because the consumer's need is navigating the care. And this is not just restricted to booking an appointment, but we follow it through with helping you with your admissions if required, helping you through your surgery workflow, making sure that your recovery post-surgery is also good. So it's the care navigation. And what they trust us with is in that it's just not the booking, but it's also the quality assurance of that particular provider. So in that care navigation portion, we do audits of the hospitals. We audit from the basement to the top floor. What are the kind of equipment does the hospital have? We put that in, and we make sure that there's only certain quality and above that we put up on our platform. And then we also check on the credentials of the doctors. We credential check them. We privilege them with the kind of treatments they can and cannot do based on the degrees that they have and the education that they have received. So there are a bunch of these things that we do in care navigation that gives the consumer the best health outcomes. And then we have virtual care. Virtual care is telemedicine, where again our job is to make sure instantly we provide doctors to the patient, and we help in improving the health outcome by improving accessibility. And then now we are launching few AI solutions for consumers and providers, but I'll talk about that later. So these are the 4 things that we do, and these 4 things make up our revenue.
So let's talk about the software piece first. like I said, India, of course, I mean, there have been very few very large outcome purely in the SaaS space in India. But when you go globally, we have seen that even in healthcare, there are very practice specific providers. For example, dentistry is a very deep market. If you look at internationally, there are players who have been able to build large outcomes just by providing practice management solution to dentists. Uh, how does your product compete with somebody who has a very vertical focus, because you guys are,
Yeah.
let's say, more horizontal?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I think we do have modules for each specialization, um, but the way we treat software is more as we are the basic software for you. We are the software that you start with, and then we help you integrate with others. So if you want an EMR that is more powerful than us, we can integrate with that. If you want a
Got it.
CRM that is more powerful, then we can integrate. So the strategy on software was not that can we dominate the market with software, but can we
Makes sense.
digitize the market. So digitization, taking the center from 0 to 1 was our job.
Makes sense.
And then if somebody wants to take it deeper, that's there. So in 2012 we had a choice whether we want to go deeper into software or go to B2C, and we made a very clear choice that we want to go to B2C because our vision was always consumer. Our
Makes
problem was,
sense.
can we solve the consumer's problem? Software was one of the ways to solve the consumer's problem. So we didn't see the software as an end to our problem. We saw that as a starting point to our problem, and then we moved on to other things. And that's why today only 10% of our revenues come from software, and we don't think it will change too much. It will continue to be 10 to 20% of our revenues, because our focus will continue to be around solve the consumers' problems. Because if you
Sure.
solve the consumers' problems, you can then get them to the providers. And just one last thing, right? I mean, for providers also, the higher order bit problem to solve, right? Efficiency is one problem, but the higher order bit for them is that can I, everybody does. You're in a healthcare field. Everybody's job in healthcare is how do I improve quality, right?
Makes
You
sense.
are, your organization is training people better so that the quality of care improves. Doctors are trying to learn more so that they can equip themselves with better technologies and better knowledge so they can treat better. Hospitals are trying to get better technologies, bigger centers, closer centers, so they can treat better. Every one of us in the healthcare ecosystem is trying to improve quality, and that's what we also want to do. So software had a role to play in quality, but we feel that there are other things that we can do to influence the quality and the health outcomes. And so that's why the software is built in a way which is an entry to the entry that is takes it to one level. But there are other solutions that we have built out, like care navigation, virtual care, AI solutions that will improve the health outcomes. So the uber goal of Practo and the measurement that we have internally is what is the improvement in health outcomes that we have delivered through each of our products, and that's how we make our capital allocation.
Sure. Sure. Let's come to the consumer bit, and specifically the care navigation vertical as you define it. So I'm assuming three core sub verticals within it. One is consultations, pharmacy, and diagnostics. Are you full stack in these verticals, or are you a curated marketplace where you just curate the supply but don't go full stack and make infrastructural investment? How
Yeah.
have you built this business?
Yeah, we've honestly moved front and back on this. So in the last 10 years, we've gone full stack into e-pharmacy. Today, we operate a very marketplace where we integrate with e-pharmacy players. In diagnostic, we had our own labs and we had our own phlebos, but then we have phlebotomists, and then we moved back and made it into a marketplace. In the provider as well, we've tried out different models. And so what we are very good at is bringing innovation to the table, and our
Sure.
innovations are usually things that are we are not good at making marginal improvements, and so we like to reimagine things. So what we try to do is we add new things to the ecosystem, and not marginally improve what's already there. So when we see the ecosystem, we see diagnostic labs being there, we see pharmacies being there, we see hospitals being there. We try to ask ourselves, okay, what's the value add that we can add? And we find that especially of all the three, the area where we can do the best job is in the provider side. There are close to about 10 lakh doctors in India, a million doctors in India. That's only allopathic, and there's probably another million more which are non-allopathic. And then there are close to about 500,000 odd establishments, hospitals, clinics, nursing homes. And the consumer has a variety of problems that he faces. And it's such a large long tail that a consumer finds it very difficult to understand quality, understand for his particular need which is the right provider. And that is where our care navigation is the most powerful in. And that is, I would say 90% of what we do in care navigation, which is to help the consumer navigate the healthcare delivery side, which is which doctor, which hospital, which clinic is the best suited for my requirement. I am a patient that's looking for the breast cancer specialist in North Bangalore. How do I find that breast cancer specialist in North Bangalore so that
Sure.
the care I'm getting is close to my home? It has the best outcomes. It's also in the affordable range of pricing that I'm looking for, and has the best quality. So this is where Practo has had the maximum success, because we've accumulated the most data points about what a doctor does, what a hospital does, what are the price points, what do they do well at, what do they not do that much well at, and relative to everybody else, who's doing well at what. And this changes over time. So to you, how do I make sure that your health outcomes is improved by navigating your care through Practo versus not doing so? That's the product that we have.
And is it right to assume that for a new player to come and, let's say, compete against you in the consumer vertical, I think this is a vertical where it would be the most difficult for somebody to compete with you because of the network effects, right? I mean, somebody can actually come and let's say make infrastructural investment on the diagnostic side, let's say build a chain of full stack lab, but replicating that network of users using the platform and doctors using the platform for more than a decade, does that give you your moat in this line of business?
I would say that see, moats and the technology of internet came in 20 years back, and so yes, in the last 20 years we've built this infrastructure. I'm sure the next technology wave, like say AI or the next technology, will make this irrelevant, and
Yeah.
so I think not irrelevant, but will add more value to it, right? And maybe somebody else can capture that value. But you're absolutely right. I think today we have the largest network. I think 500,000 doctors are on the network, 250,000 establishments are on the network. We have 25 million data points that are unique to us, and that's growing at a very fast pace. So it's form of a LinkedIn. It's a form of a this network where both sides are adding more content, making it useful to each other. Our fascination is in solving the problem, and that's the problem that we want to solve. That how do you make sure that the health outcomes are at the best with this use of technology? What I would be very sad is if there's internet available and internet's utilization in creating this network wasn't done, and the health outcomes that could have been delivered were not delivered. That would make me sad. I really don't honestly care if Practo does it or three companies together do it. We have to make sure that the world has created internet. Our job is to utilize that in this care delivery navigation and make sure we do the best job of it.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that has not happened, not just in India but globally. And that is what is a huge opportunity for us, that can we get this problem solved with this technology, and we will do the absolute best job in using this technology for this problem, and nobody else in the world should be able to do it better than us, right? And that is what we every day go to work with. And I've spent 17 years at Practo, but you'll be surprised at number of people in Practo that have spent 10, 15, 17 years along with me. So I'm very happy that more people are in love with this problem like me and are obsessed in solving it.
Amazing. Let's talk about the virtual care business, Shashank. Why don't you give us some idea about how the business looks like, how the scale, the magnitude, the complexity of the virtual care business?
So virtual care is, where in care navigation, like you said, we don't add anything in a physical side. What we do is we audit the physical centers, we provide booking solutions, reviews, feedback, we check on outcomes, all of that. But what we noticed was that in 2016, that doctors, the technology of video chat had emerged, with Apple doing FaceTime, and video format online had started doing very well. But doctors were still not comfortable delivering care online. And that's where we had to step in and say that, because there were questions around efficacy, liability, saying who will take the liability if something goes wrong, how will the efficacy take place. So we found a lot of hesitation in doctors to adopt the virtual care. This is before COVID. Whereas we saw that consumers really wanting it. At 3 in the night, where will you go? And even if you go to a nearby hospital, you'll not get the best doctors. And doctors are at home. They could be connected with the patient. They want to, but they were all this hesitation. So what we did is we built this technology platform. And then we told the doctors that, hey, certain part of the liability we will assume, and you can go ahead and get this transaction completed with the consumers. And so we created a video system where a patient would be able to do video chats. Today, it's very obvious, but 10 years back it was not so obvious. And of course, during COVID, it scaled up very well. So what we have done is that, what we have been able to provide any specialization. That is, you could talk, you want a veterinarian, you want a cardiologist, you want not just a GP doctor, but any form of specialization, a good doctor available to you on instant consultation within 30 seconds, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, right? And that made sure that a person, can rest assured that if they boost up their Practo app, they will find a doctor to talk to of that specialization anytime. So we have seen, anxious parents. I was one. At 1 in the night, if there's fever, what do I do? My pediatrician will be up at 7, 8 o'clock, but what do I do now? He's not replying to my WhatsApp. We are there for you. My dog has had some kind of incident at 3 in the night. Should I take him to the hospital or should I stay at home? We are there for you. We'll do a video, we'll check, and we'll let you know. Of course, we are not, we would say any emergency or to rush to the hospital. Sure. But for places where you're in two minds, talk to us. And that's a solution that we have built. It's unfortunate, but due to COVID, we saw that the technology was widely adopted. We were ready to handle that scale. We were doing, today we continue to do thousands of consultations a day, but back then tens and thousands of consultations a day, and it came in quite handy. And I think now we are seeing that more specializations are getting hybrid, like sexual health, mental health, chronic care. Even a lot of skin and hair treatments, weight loss. These are a lot of specializations that have found a lot of comfort, even general physicians, in delivering care. Not entirely, but at least a large percentage of it completely online. And that's where virtual care comes in.
Sure. In categories where there is a certain stigma or taboo attached to visiting a clinician in person, have you seen higher adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. Like psychiatry is one of our top 3 specializations, and it is growing. Sexual health is still, making its way, but I'd say mental health is right up there. We're seeing, just top 3, and it'll probably break into the top 2 very soon. And so we're seeing a huge inflow of for mental health counseling kind of use cases. We think now with the GLP-1 coming out, we are also going to see a lot of adoption there. But you're right that those are the initial ones that are taking up adoption. But as the efficacy is proven, people worry that, hey, if I don't see the doctor physically, then will my outcomes be worse off? So health is, it's not an instant sector. Trust has to be built. So so you have to build that trust, consultation after consultation, fix the issues that are there, and then it will eventually find its right place. And I think that probably about 20-30% of all consultations today can happen online, and it'll slowly get there as the players who are doing it do a good enough job of providing quality and knowing when to move it to offline, and knowing that, hey, you need physical touch right now, please go to the offline. This particular treatment pathway with the kind of feedback coming from the patient can be solved online. So those things will settle down, but I do think that this is here to stay.
And have you already started seeing the platform behavior in the virtual care business, which means repeat use cases? So somebody comes to the platform, let's say for a psychiatry session, but ends up consulting multiple specialties 2-3 times a year. Have you started seeing that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been very surprised the retention cohorts that we are seeing, because once you meet a doctor, you will continue the relationship offline, right? So our expectation is not that you book an appointment or you find a provider through us and you'll continue all your interactions of the provider through us, because that's not necessary. You've discovered a provider from us, you figured out where to get your acne treatment, you go on and but what we have seen is that once you trust us for the one specialization, you'll come back to the next one and the next one and the next one. And so whether it's your orthopedic for your father, or whether it's a cardiac for your grandfather, or whether it's your gynac for your for your wife, or whether it is a dermatologist for your sister, all these use cases start coming to us. And so we're seeing that users coming back to the platform for not just them but their family members, not just for virtual care, even for care navigation. The key thing here is, have you earned the trust of the consumer? And have you added value to what they would have done otherwise? And that can be only measured if you're measuring the health outcome. We are the only company that actually checks with the patient that did you recover or not. Okay. I don't think you have gone to so many hospitals and clinics. Has anybody checked in with you after 3 months, asking you, did you recover or not? After
the onus is
1 month.
on you after getting discharged. The onus is on you to go back and do a follow-up consultation. The onus is not on the provider.
But the provider's onus is actually to treat you. The treatment is over only when you're recovered.
Yeah, but they don't follow up.
So we actually follow up with the patient and check with the patient that, hey, did you? And all the data points help us. And why I'm sharing this is because I think everybody should do it. Everybody should do it. Right? The treatment doesn't end when you finish the operation. The treatment ends when the patient recovers fully. And the onus should not be on the patient to. I mean, this is how we can make the consumer the center of our universe. So all these data points help us in finding out, did we improve the health outcomes? And if we improve the health outcomes, then we have a reason to exist. And that's what we continuously do. We keep finding ways to remove the reasons why the health outcome went down and keep moving that barrier, that metric up.
Oh, by the way, it may sound like a threat that once the search and discovery and the initial consultation happens online, the relationship is bound to move offline. But as a user, I wanted to share this feedback from you. The biggest USP of not taking my relationship with the clinician offline for me as a user is the trail and the history. So my last at least 7 or 8 years of record of visiting so many different clinicians, whether it was a gynecologist for my wife or whether it was a dietitian for my mother, it's all there on my Practo app.
Right.
It's just so easy to retrieve of what the last doctor said 5 years ago. In India, we lack, let's say, we are talking about digital public health infrastructure right now, but like there is no common health repository and record. So I think the best proxy in my case is my Practo app, because everything is there.
Health journey is there.
Yeah. One interesting thing that I saw about your journey is diversification. And diversification not only in terms of geographical diversification, you chose to go out of India to different markets as well, but also in terms of different vertical. Now, if you do a theoretical TAM analysis, individually each of these separate segments are billion-dollar markets in their own right. For example, virtual care itself is potentially can be a very, very large market. Same can be said about medicine delivery. Same can be said about surgeries. And by the way, there are players who have been chasing these separate markets, in their quest to prove that these are billion-dollar markets in their own right. What were the pros and cons of, let's say, that were going in your mind of whether to diversify or whether to focus on, let's say, only the virtual care or only the consumer space or only software we spoke about, but why diversify?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think we've got it right. We've also got it wrong. And maybe start with when we got it wrong. When you diversify without, and this is actually Sanjeev Vikchandani who told me this in 2016, and I wish I had followed it back then. Was that he told me that first create a cash cow, right, and then use that cash cow to then diversify.
First create the Naukri.com.
Yeah, first create the cash cow and then diversify. And I think I told him, I met him recently. I told him that I should listen to you on this particular point for sure. And what we made a mistake when we diversified in the wrong way was when we took risks in diversification way too early, when it could have sunk the mothership. Right? And so that was a risk that we took in 2016, 2017 because we had access to capital. The only decision why we diversified was because we had access to capital. And that access to capital was not capital coming in from operating cash flows, but it was coming from investor inflows. And that's a very risky diversification. Because when you're diversifying on the back of investor capital, that is not a continuous source of capital, so it can stop any time. And then you're left, and in any investment, it takes a time period for you to get a return.
And then you realize you have 2 businesses who are bleeding.
And in my case, I ended up with 5-6 businesses, which are all bleeding, right? And so I had one business just doing well, not from a financial way, but from a user metrics cohort. My user metrics are through the roof in my core business, but I had still not gotten it to a stage where it was a cash flow positive business, which could then, fund the rest. It was I got investor capital because one of my verticals was doing well from a user perspective, not yet from a financial perspective, but under the presumption that I will make it successful financially as well, I went into diversification, both geography and this into 2016, 2017. the biggest mistake in my life could have killed the company. But luckily, I had a very strong team. We had very strong values. We had set up the company for the right I would say moral fabric, and that is what saved the company. And because we were then able to say, you know what, we got it wrong. We were able to accept the mistake, and then bring it back to what we think is the right, which is what we did. And then in 22 is when 22 23 is after turning profitable, and after having proven that, hey, we can take our core business and convert it into a cash generating business, is then we started focusing on diversification. Because now we know that we have a perennial business where the core business is generating cash, and that cash is then used up for expansion, and it's not investor capital that's coming from macro environment changes. I think that is one aspect. And looking back, the diversification from B2B to B2C was just survival, and
Sure.
at that point you must do what's right.
Yeah.
But in 2016 it was just greed and probably stupidity of diversifying on the investor capital, which was probably lack of experience, I would put it down to. But touch wood, and we were able to recover from that, thanks to our board, our investors who are very patient, as well as a fantastic team that actually stayed in for the mission, and today also stays in for the mission. And now when we are finally again expanding into other geographies, or are venturing into other areas, is happening through the operating cash flows.
Amazing. Shashank, we were discussing off the camera that it's very tempting for startups like us to actually dip our toes in the healthcare delivery side, because you start with a problem, and if your higher level mission statement is making, let's say, better healthcare outcome accessible to all, then sometime in your journey you also realize that what's broken at a very fundamental level is the infrastructure. So, and while technology can solve a lot of other aspects, nothing can replace the lack of infrastructure. And that has led to a lot of health tech slash healthcare startups dipping their toes and trying to either become a provider, because uh, yeah, let's be realistic, there are lesser number of hospitals, that good hospitals, than what we need. There's also the other side where out of pocket expenses abnormally high in the country, more than 60% plus. uh, there are examples of people spending their whole life savings in the, let's say, last 30 days of their lives. So becoming a provider or becoming a payer looks like a tempting option, very I don't know whether lucrative or not, but it's very tempting for all the right reasons, I would say. How have you been able to avoid that temptation so far? And to entrepreneurs who are facing the same dilemma, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and there is nothing wrong in solving two problems.
Sure.
And there could be different people who are better suited to solve different problems. And the way I see it is, in the I know this is humans in general are all they're trying to do is reduce uncertainty, which is solving problems, right? That's what we all do. We get up in the morning, we go out there, we say, okay, what's the uncertainty right now? Let's reduce that. I'm saying the uncertainty in quality, let's reduce that. There's uncertainty in accessing healthcare, let's reduce that. There's uncertainty in getting affordable healthcare, let's reduce that. You're solving for there's uncertainty in the quality of workmanship, let's improve that. So everybody's trying to get rid of some uncertainty in the world, and every generation removes some uncertainty. Then the next generation comes, and that's how the world is getting a better place. The world is getting a better place because people are coming together, identifying pockets of uncertainty, removing that. So that today we're having fantastic internet. There was uncertainty,
Yeah.
many generations back. Thanks to the last generation who did it. We didn't do anything on that, and maybe there was uncertainty in talking to our family members far away. Somebody went and solved the mobile phone problem. So those uncertainties. So I think the question really is, what are the uncertainties of tomorrow, and what are the uncertainties of today, and how can we solve that? And so we are in the process of identifying that. And if, let's say, if some people feel that the uncertainty is in in quality establishments, and they have to set them up, more power to them. We found certain challenges and in the delivery space, and I'll mention three of them. The first one was that in the delivery space, we found that most of the hospitals are operating at 60% occupancy.
Yeah.
That means there's still availability there. Two is that clearly the cost price, I mean the price of healthcare is going up, so the margins are expanding, especially post COVID. There seems to have been higher instances of health, or maybe there's more awareness, either of the two or maybe both, leading to higher revenues, higher margins for hospital groups, and the prices is also rising up, and so the people might find that as an opportunity. For Practo, we are already a marketplace of providers, so there would be a conflict of interest for us and also for our
Sure.
users to figure out. And we felt that, what is the incremental value that we can add as being a provider? Can we do it 10x better than the current ones? We
Yeah.
felt that we don't have those ideas.
Yeah, most of us don't have the right to win in that
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
So I don't have the ideas. Maybe somebody else does, and so more power to them. But can I make sure that for a consumer who is in, let's say, we are right now in Indiranagar in Bangalore, for that individual to get the access to the best available quality and the best available care with the lowest price in the fastest way, can we make that possible for them? We felt that we have the skill sets to solve that uncertainty for them, for the next generation not to worry about it. So by the time we are done with our job, the next generation not worry about it. And that's where we felt we can add 10x value. And so in that layer is where we feel that there's not good enough job being done, and it is our job to get that resolved. And it's not just to get the problem resolved, but also to make sure that that problem can be resolved in a sustainable manner as a company, so that that problem forever will be resolved and will never go from being solved to being unsolved again.
Makes sense. Let's do some future gazing, Shashank.
Yes.
Your team has just delivered a fantastic year. 3,500 crore in GMV, 26% revenue growth. The losses have drastically come down. What are, and of course, I was going to ask the IPO question, but let's park it for some time. What are some of the few near-term and mid-term milestones that you have in mind for the company? Also, capital markets are at all-time high, especially healthcare stocks are on fire. I mean, if we leave aside the development of the last 3 days, then the overall macro environment uh, for entrepreneurs building in the healthcare space looks very, very favorable on the capital market side. Uh, in that context, what are your plans to steer Practo, let's say, ahead?
Yeah. So I think the first one is, digital health company being profitable has been a myth so far,
Yeah.
and we want to bust that myth. So I think FY25 will be Practo's first fully profitable year, full year.
Wow.
I think a couple of $1 million of profit is something that we should be able to deliver, and exiting with even higher run rates, so in profits, right? And so in EBITDAs, and that should be something that we should be able to demonstrate in the year forward. So I think that will be behind us. So for the whole digital health ecosystem, and for people coming into digital health, this whole stigma that we have never delivered a profitable company, I think that should be behind us. I think
Sure.
more power to all of us to deliver more profits, more companies to deliver profits in the coming years. That is something that we are looking forward to. Second is, I think the public markets in India are still fantastic. I am very happy with the recent correction that's happened. I hope there's another 10%. Because if you look at the amount of dry powder that's available, look at the EBITDA multiples you're getting in India, it's still higher than what you're getting outside India. So it's still a great place to be at. And so it was crazy levels, and now it is, I think, in good levels, and it can even get better, in my opinion, by coming down. I think it's good for all of us. I think sustainable valuations are more important, and that sets the right incentives, that sets the right expectations, that sets the right capital allocation, that sets the right ROCs, and etc. etc. So so I think that's what is happening in India is phenomenal. We've been receiving requests from companies outside India to join hands and go public in India, because the public markets in India seem to have the depth. And I think that'll not change for the next couple of decades at least. So it's still a fantastic place. So I think that's another milestone. The third one for us is, we've still in India only been able to capture a very small percentage of the delivery spends as a GMV. $400 million is still a very small part of $100 billion delivery market of India. So I think Practo needs to still dominate the market, and we're still many steps behind there. Luckily for us, some new technologies have come up. AI, it's great that we have gone 1 hour without using the word AI in a podcast, but it's something that keeps me up at night. It makes me work through the weekends. It is something magical that's happening, and we are every day working on it at Practo. So I can't wait. It's already on some iPhones right now, iOS apps right now, but I can't wait for this year. The roadmap that we have is so exciting that we feel that those releases will this year and next year will really juice things up.
Does it feel like 2008 again?
It does. It generally. I mean, see, 2008. From a technology standpoint, I love internet. I love the mobile. I love AI. I really don't care about valuations. I really, don't care about what the perception of some. What is really important is, are we solving the problem, right? That is the real thing. How valuable that problem is, could be 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion. That will keep changing over time.
Yeah.
That is not in your control. What is in your control is, did you solve the problem? That's what you'll be remembered for. And so it's 2008 for me, because it is back to amazing technology being available that we can all use in our, and show people. It should be like magic. When we spoke the 30 seconds that the doctor saw, what I could see in his eyes was magic. When I would send that SMS and he would see his phone, like, he would not pay attention to me. Doctors are so busy, right? They have so many things going on. I'll be talking to him and he'll be like, what is this? And then the SMS comes in 30 seconds. You look at it and you're like, whoa, what happened? How did this magic happen? How did SMS? Today SMSs are easy, but 2008, even airlines are not sending messages, or even banks are not sending messages back then. So we were one of the first to do that API. So like that, AI can show that magic to people and can save lives. And so we are very excited about that milestone. And the last one is, I think globally, time has come that consumer internet companies, and many of them in India now, we saw Infosys and Wipro, doing such magic for the world from Indian engineers. Then we saw Zoho, Freshworks, and Browser Stack, and so many amazing companies building fantastic products by engineers from India. Now is time when consumer internet companies, right, should be able to serve consumers, not B2B, but consumers from across the globe by engineers from India. And that's what's not as a back office, but as the front office, right? And that's what excites me with the opportunities that we have ahead of us.
Amazing. Let's do a rapid fire, Shashank.
Okay.
So whatever comes, first 10 seconds, whatever comes to your mind. Okay, let's go on then. What's the first thing that you do when you start your workday?
The first thing I do when I start my workday, I open my Notion and I journal what I'm going to achieve that day.
Interesting. What do you feel, or what do you wish you could have known more about leadership when you started back in 2008?
I wish that I hadn't. That capital raising is actually capital allocation game and not a capital raising game. I think I was too focused on capital raising versus capital allocation.
What is the one most important decision in your professional career, which is Practo, that had the maximum impact on taking Practo where it is today?
I think definitely, doing the Hyperloop, because even today globally there's no other equivalent to Hyperloop, a company that does B2B software for doctors and does a consumer play for doctors. People figured out much later, but doing that in 2011, I think that really changed the trajectory of us.
What is the best advice that you have ever received as a founder?
Right now, it sounds like what Sanjeev Chandani told me, which is a top of mind, which is create a cash cow before diversifying.
If you weren't building Practo, what was the alternate career path that you would have chosen?
I was really, I know it sounds a little, there are two answers to this. The first answer that comes to my mind is that, I remember being fascinated by space. This is in 2011, 10, and like stargazing, and just I didn't have any background in creating rockets or anything, but I really enjoyed thinking about it and figuring out whether that's even possible. This is way before even I knew something called SpaceX existed. But the second thing was, more, that was one outlandish idea that I had. The second one, more practical, was I had three things I had put down when I remember in 2008, which I thought we should start. One was software for lawyers, basically services. I thought of services and said, okay, how do I, solve for services? And it was lawyers, doctors, and education. So it was legal, healthcare and education. So I went to legal first. Did not pan out well because the guy didn't look at my product. He asked me for my TNCs first. He said, "Pehle TNCs दिखाओ फिर product दो." I said, "Okay, this is not happening." Then I went to doctors. It stuck. Otherwise, I'd have been in edtech.
Okay. Move fast and break things. In context of health tech or a healthcare company, true or false?
True, but with a caveat that you need to. There is one thing that doctors learn, and we as health tech should also learn: is you can do whatever you want to help the patient, but you cannot harm the patient. That no harm is a red line. It doesn't matter whether your company exists, doesn't exist, doesn't matter. When it comes to that, there is zero tolerance. So you can break things, but you need to make sure that there's no harm to the patient. That is an absolute no-go.
Throughout your professional journey, you have been a founder with no operating experience before being a founder. Tell us one way in which it makes you a better operator and one way in which it handicaps you.
Better operator because I have to learn what is politics. I have no idea what is politics, so I'm. That's a good thing because you build everything first principles. So the idealism and the mission orientedness stays very fresh, and I think that's been a positive for us. I started in my third year. Now I wish I started in my after school. I just feel like I'm born to solve these problems, and I should have done it earlier. The handicap is certainly lack of experience. I think if I had, I had maybe spent some time in other places, I would have, I think the biggest regret I have is the capital allocation. I should have gotten that right, but I don't know. Many companies got it wrong in that 2015 2019 period.
Yeah.
I wish that was the worst time for me. Professionally, that 2017 and 18, especially 16 and 17, where I got the capital allocation wrong, the diversification before getting my cash flows and my one business cash flow positive was a mistake.
What's your take on the 70-hour work week?
I think that humans are born to remove inefficiencies and to solve problems, and as long as you're passionate about this and you have the right 70 hours or 90 hours, it really doesn't matter. I think you should put everything you have behind it. I personally work for those many hours or more for the last 17 years. I've enjoyed it and have still managed to have a very loving and caring family. I think it can be done. So you should find your own balance. But I would say that more is better because the world we've inherited has, because people generations sacrificed before us, we got to leave the world in a better place. So the more hours we work, it'll be a better place for others.
How different or difficult it is for you to manage Gen Z at workplace compared to the previous generation?
That's the toughest one I've heard today. It's quite hard. I think that when I wouldn't fault them for it. I think they've been brought up in an ecosystem where the challenges have been lesser. I think we've also had the same compared to our ancestors. So it's very challenging, I would say. It's challenging to, I put in 17 years behind this, and I have met people who have spent 40, 50 years solving problems. I think today's generation is a little less patient, and I think also because of social media, there is this need to showcase happiness or showcase things, and which drives the wrong incentives. I think we need to solve tough problems. We need to make the world a better place. So for that, I find that this current generation, something has to change. I personally am not on Instagram, not on Facebook, not on any of these platforms. I think this has made it a little weaker for me.
Great. That's all from my side, Shashank. Thank you so much for being super candid on this podcast. I mean, it requires a lot of guts to come on a podcast or any public platform and accept your mistakes. To accept the fact that, even as a founder of such a storied company, you had shortcomings in the past. So thank you for being super candid. And I hope everyone watching this show is as inspired by the great mission that you are pursuing and the fantastic company that you have built. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Vivek. And for those who watched us all along, more power to you. And I hope more passionate and inspired people join health tech, build phenomenal companies, and solve healthcare and other interesting problems all around us. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.